Against all expectations, it's an all-Ferrari front row for tomorrow's Monaco Grand Prix. Felipe Massa grabbing pole position from his teammate Kimi Raikkonen. Lewis Hamilton there having to settle for third on an all-McLaren second row. And it has to be said, Mark, this is a huge setback for McLaren and for Lewis.
I think both of the guys there, Lewis and McLaren, will be a little bit upset about the performance of the car, because I think they felt that there was a possibility of getting pole position here. But Massa, I suggest he doesn't like the rest of the circuits left on the calendar, because he comes here, he says he doesn't like the place, not at home with it, but qualifies on pole position with a great lap.
He attacked it with some relish. What is the extra, do you think, that Ferrari have found here?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I honestly felt leaving the last race that McLaren had made inroads and there was a little bit of progress there and they were very level, but they've come here, a circuit where normally they're not quite as quick as McLaren historically, and they've pulled something out of the bag, and it's a little bit longer wheelbase car. It's normally not as agile as a McLaren, but it's got round here very quickly, and a lockout for Ferrari.
If anything, it was Raikkonen we expected to be on pole position if the Ferraris were strong, and it was looking that way early on in the final session.
Definitely. I think Kimi Raikkonen, the aggressive nature of the way he gets around here, was going to promote the fact that he should be quicker than Massa. But saying that, we have to say that Massa's been qualifying very well over this season. Raikkonen at this point, though, does take the faster position, and we all thought that was done and dusted.
Then came the challenge from Lewis. What do you feel it was that Lewis was losing in that middle section in particular?
Well, it's a difficult one, because sector one, he was so fast. He was faster than everybody concerned out on the circuit. That middle sector kept dragging him down. Maybe there was a possibility of overdriving the car, not quite getting the best out of it. But I think he still did a very good job, but he will be desperately disappointed.
Now here's Felipe Massa grabbing that pole position, and he's turned this into a fine art qualifying, hasn't he?
Well, he's turned it into a fine art, but this is such a big thing for him now to sit on pole. He's got a great situation now, taking this Grand Prix win, and it really does put him in contention for this World Championship.
On row two, alongside Lewis Hamilton, his McLaren teammate Heikki Kovalainen, and he's with Louise.
Heikki, P4 and an all-McLaren front row, which... start again. Heikki, P4 and an all-Ferrari front row, which probably wasn't what we were all expecting.
Well, they've been strong this year, so why not? I'm sure they haven't lost any of their performance, this weekend, and surely, they are very, very good, very performing very well. And I just didn't get any more out of the car and the tires today, especially the softer tire. I just felt I couldn't get more out of it. I don't know exactly why, but need to try to find out the reasons and try again tomorrow.
We saw you have the problem at the end of the practice session this morning. How difficult was it to put that out of your mind and just cut and nail it in qualifying?
No, not difficult at all. It was just a very small mistake, and to be honest, I just clipped the wall. I thought I would have survived that, but the wheel just gave up and car didn't have any other damage. It was just the wheel, so it's no problem.
Thanks.
Heikki actually was quite sensational in the manner in which he came back from that incident this morning.
Yeah, great strength, depth of character, but you expect that of these guys. Shouldn't really give them too much to worry about. But what I'm concerned about is just knowing what the fuel levels are when we play out the race tomorrow, just to see whether McLaren have gone a little bit too heavy and compromised themselves and maybe cost themselves that pole and that front row lockout.
Also impressive was Robert Kubica in the BMW. He's qualified in 5th position on the grid, behind the McLarens of Hamilton and Kovalainen. We can hear from Robert Kubica now with Louise.
The car and the tires today, especially the softer tire, I just felt I couldn't get more.
Always a possibility to hit something out there.
Yeah, unfortunately, last lap I have Lewis in front of me. He didn't hold me, but when you have car in front, it's always kind of risk. And on the out lap, I was trying to do enough gap to him to don't have to overtake him on my flying lap. And I cooled down too much tires, so first sector was much slower until half of the track I was 3 tenths off than run before, and then I managed to pull everything on the last sector. But yeah, I think I was pushing all qualifying every single lap, and this was all what I could do.
Thanks, well done.
Robert Kubica there with Ted, but you wouldn't expect Robert to be a significant factor in the race tomorrow.
I don't think it'll be a factor in the race tomorrow, but I do feel that there was probably a little bit left in that car there. As you said, he lost 3 tenths a second. He picked it all up at the latter part of the lap. If he could have put that together, he'd have probably been sitting there on the second row, if not maybe the front row.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about the prospects for tomorrow's Grand Prix with this all-Ferrari front row in just a few minutes' time, and we'll also hear from the drivers in the press conference. Back in a couple of minutes. This is how they line up for tomorrow's Monaco Grand Prix, and it's not just the pole position for Felipe Massa, but the all-Ferrari front row that is the real surprise. Massa and Raikkonen on row 1, then the two McLarens of Hamilton and Kovalainen. Robert Kubica in the BMW. Great qualifying performance from the very strong-looking Nico Rosberg in the Williams. Then Alonso making it into the top 10 to line up alongside Jarno Trulli. Mark Webber and David Coulthard, the two Red Bulls, but David Coulthard, having crashed heavily at the end of the second qualifying session, wasn't able to take any part in that top 10 shootout. So it's Massa on pole from Kimi Raikkonen. Let's hear from the top three in the drivers' press conference.
Felipe, you got a big smile on your face, and I guess it's because before qualifying you're saying you don't really like this place.
I still cannot believe I'm on pole. I mean, it's unbelievable. I was pushing very hard during these days to learn how to drive here, because it was the place which I was struggling every time I come here. And I just, on the first day, I was struggling still a little bit on the second sector. But then I managed to put everything together to learn some tricks in some corners, and also having a great car. So I still cannot believe I'm on pole.
Well, you are on pole. And just talk us through those closing minutes and how late it was in Q3 that you got that lap in.
Well, I tried I did the first try, and it was not a bad lap, but I saw I was missing sometimes in some couple of corners, and I saw the lap time was not so far away from Kimi and Lewis. I think it was a couple of tenths lower, and but I knew I was able to improve a little bit, but I was thinking that they will improve a little bit as well, and but then I improved a lot, and I was able to do a perfect lap. And in Monaco, which is almost impossible to do a perfect lap, and becoming good here as well.
Was there one aspect of the lap in particular in which you found the time?
Well, I think everywhere. I already brake quite late on turn 1, because turn 1 was never a great corner for me and for us here compared to McLaren as well. And I braked very late, but then I saw that the car stops, and then I managed to get a good exit as well. And then I said, oh, okay, now I need to push all through the lap, because he has to be like that every corner. Otherwise, a small thing you lose, you can lose maybe 2 tenths very easy. So, and then I managed to do everything the same in every corner, and I'm on pole.
Well, a fantastic result for you and for the team. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Kimi, congratulations to you too, and all Ferrari front row here at Monte Carlo. Talk us through Q3 from your point of view.
Was okay. The first run, the second try was also not too bad. Just took it a bit too easy in the first corner, really. Lost some time comparing to the first try, and then you bit behind to try to catch up, and I managed to do a good lap apart from the first few corners. So not enough, and in here is not a good thing. But tomorrow we probably have a pretty difficult condition, so it's going to be good fun.
We saw Fernando Alonso, a double winner of the race, choosing the harder of the two Bridgestone compounds going into Q3. What was the tyre situation like today?
For me, really, the tyres been working well. It's just a bit difficult to get the first lap out of them, but after that they work very well, but that's been really the most difficult part.
A great result for Ferrari. The team has shown phenomenal pace and reliability over the last 4 races, and you've always been very quick on slow corners. What was the feeling coming into Monaco this year?
For sure, we didn't know really what to expect, because last year it was very difficult for us here, and some other races. But we improved the car. We knew that, but before we came, we were not 100% sure how well we will do. And looks like we made a good step, and we are able to challenge for win. So that's a good thing to know.
It is indeed. Congratulations to you, Kimi. And Lewis, congratulations to you. I guess you must be disappointed, but I guess equally you must be thinking about strategy and what fuel loads everybody's running.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we did a solid job, and for sure we anticipated we'd be a little bit quicker. but I guess we were surprised by the Ferrari's pace. But no, both my laps were quite good. I was quite happy with the way the whole session went. No problems with traffic. We lost a little bit, I think, in the last sector. But generally, the car felt good, and I felt that I strung together 2 solid laps. And the time just wasn't there. And but still, we've got. I'm happy with the strategy we're on. So tomorrow we should see how we do.
Very, very quick in Sector 1. Can you pinpoint a little bit, perhaps, where you might have been losing time in Sectors 2 or 3?
I think in Sectors 2, we lose out a lot on traction, I think, out of probably going up the straight, out of turn 8, up through the tunnel, and out of the chicane. And then in the last sector, I think it's the last couple of corners, just not being able to brake as late as we would hope.
And what does that mean from a driver's point of view around Monte Carlo? Obviously, you're on the limit. Obviously, you're almost scraping those walls. But you are having to allow for that slight difference in performance between the 2 cars.
Yeah, I think, well, in practice, doing a lap was quite easy. And I was able to push more if I wanted to. And so we felt quite confident that we would have the pace. I would say this was more having to be more on the limit here in Q3. And the car wasn't particularly happy, I don't think. So, but we'll push very hard in the race, and I'm sure we'll be able to compete.
No excuses from Lewis Hamilton, but he looks rather shocked by what's happened today.
I think he is a little bit surprised by the pace of Ferrari. And, if you go through the weekend, Lewis is strong. He looked like he was going to be up in the front row, maybe pole position, and he gets to the final qualifying and he gets pipped by Ferrari. That's got to be tough to swallow, and I think he knows that the lap wasn't that bad, so it's just down to car performance.
Prospects then for the race tomorrow, from Lewis's point of view. He says he's happy with the strategy they're on, which is code for what?
Well, I think basically maybe he's carrying a little bit more fuel, or he feels he might be, and he's got to hope that then they run into the first stint of the race a little bit longer. Ferrari are in the pit, and he can put some flying laps together and try and make the break at that stage. But, really, if you're on the road in front, it's going to be tough to beat.
And the weather forecast suggests maybe a stronger possibility of rain, but even that plays into Ferrari hands.
Possibly, but I think if it does rain, then there's going to be a lot of different tactics and strategy, and maybe Lewis could come into his own again then with the wet conditions, but we'll have to wait and see on that.
And it must have irritated Lewis in particular to see Felipe Massa so shocked at having got pole position.
I don't think I've ever seen a driver so shocked before of doing such a great job and achieving pole and honestly not believing it. But as I say, I think for Massa this is so important. The fact that he is on pole and he's got a chance now to collect 10 more points and put himself into this World Championship, because he is a guy who should be there. Yeah, another driver who had to absorb a bit of a shock today, that was David Coulthard right at the end of the second qualifying session. Thankfully he was okay after this, but what an incident. Yeah, I mean, it's still, even watching this, you just come down to the braking area. It's just the kind of thing that you don't see very often, because it just looks like the car has actually got something gone wrong. DC seems to have been coming out and saying, look, we need to look at the data, and maybe I braked a little bit hard and we just climbed up against the wall there, but it doesn't look that kind of driver error to me. But I'd love to see what the outcome of this is finally. But a hard hit for David, and thankfully he's okay. He didn't take any part in that final session, but he will race tomorrow. He'll start from row 5, and alongside him will be his Red Bull teammate Mark Webber. Let's hear from him.
Well, Mark, we saw problems for your teammate, but a slightly smoother running session for you.
Yeah, it was for me. We got the laps in, no traffic, too slow. That's the frustrating thing. Yeah, it's we're not quick enough, and it was a real handful to get through to where we did, and then we got fairly sizable amount of fuel in the car, but I think we're still not quick enough.
Where do you think you're losing out?
Pretty even, I think. I mean, on my second sector, on my last lap wasn't fantastic, but overall, I think the sectors are reasonably balanced for us. So, see how we go tomorrow.
Thanks, Mark.
Cheers.
Others who you might rank as maybe the best of the rest today, Nico Rosberg, Robert Kubica.
Yeah, I think Kubica and Rosberg did very strong jobs. I think Kubica actually could have been a little bit better on the grid position, because I think he got held up slightly. But Rosberg as well, you have to take your hat off to the guy. He's a lot quicker than his teammate, and I think he pushed the Williams around here. And also with the Toyota engine, out-qualifying the Toyotas themselves. So, outstanding job. But today has to go down as a big disappointment for McLaren. Let's go back briefly to the years when McLaren did deliver total domination, and we can hear from a man who won in a McLaren 3 straight years, Alain Prost. We can hear from him now.
Alain, well, an all-Ferrari front row has surprised a few people, I think. Are you surprised?
I'm a little bit surprised, because in the last few years they were not so so good, so competitive, especially last year. But we saw that this year the car is different. It's also a little bit shorter, and especially in these Monaco streets, it's getting better. But it's close anyway, which is good.
Do you think they'll have it sewn up for the race, or do you think tactics are really going to come into play?
You know, I mean, nobody can tell today because of the weather. So it depends, obviously, the quantity of fuel, but also the weather. I think it's going to rain tomorrow, so I don't know. Normally, we never saw a race on the wet for a long time, especially this year, without the traction control. I think it's going to be very, very open. It's going to be difficult for the drivers. So I think it's good for Ferrari because being on pole is always an advantage.
And the last wet Monaco Grand Prix was 1997, but it's starting to rain again now.
It is, and I think, as Alain Prost said, being a local guy, you should know, but the weather does look like it's going to stay for the race day, and that's going to be very interesting indeed.
But you want to be on the front row, you want to be on pole position. That's where Felipe Massa is, and we can hear from his race engineer, Ron Smedley.
Brilliant job, Rob. Tell us the story of that. How did it happen? How did you get the car into that shape?
Well, I think, you know, we worked quite hard, all the guys, you know, work on the car. I've worked very hard overnight. We weren't 100% happy with what we were doing on Thursday, and we just worked hard, and he's worked hard as well. You know, I mean, part and parcel of the job that we have to do here is to work on him, work on his head, work on his driving, and I have to say, you know, he's done 99% of the job for us today.
And you had to convince him that it's not such a bad place. He was busy telling us after the press conference earlier in the weekend that he didn't like this place.
Yeah, he's not so thick after all, is he? Maybe he's just playing himself down. Yeah, I mean, he's never been his favourite place, which is why I really can't believe it's so special to be on pole, and I really can't believe that we are. You know, I mean, it's important to get the strategy right for the race, and I hope that's what we've done for tomorrow. Just very, very impressive. I'm, you know, lost for words for once.
But at least he can control the race from the front, which is really what you do. That's, as they say, 80% of the battle won in Monaco.
Yeah, it's so important to be on pole, and because it's just so difficult to overtake. I mean, it's impossible to overtake here. So, you know, he's done most of his work today. Fantastic.
And you have to say that Rob Smedley's team have done another fantastic job. Precisely how do Ferrari control the race then tomorrow?
I think what Rob Smedley's saying is exactly true. All the hard work's actually been done today in qualifying. As long as Massa gets off that start line clean, and that will be the next question mark, whether Raikkonen and his teammate actually beats him away into St. Devote the first corner, then he's going to be okay. But, you know, the biggest factor will be now the weather, because if the rain does come in, the whole race can change very quickly.
And what should be the McLaren attitude off row 2?
McLaren attitude is just stick right in the tails of those, or the backsides of those Ferraris, and see whether they can hound them into a mistake and possibly do something in their pit work. That's the only opportunity that's going to be out there.
OK, we shall see tomorrow. Mark, thanks very much. Just before we give you details of our Monaco coverage, a reminder that you can see highlights of the playoffs, this weekend's playoffs here on ITV, starting at 25 past midnight. Bristol City against Hull for a place in the Premier League. But there's race action from here in Monaco in just a few minutes' time on ITV4 with live coverage of the GP2 support race with rain falling around the circuit. And then our Formula One coverage tomorrow on air just before midday with a build-up to the Monaco Grand Prix, the most famous race on the Formula One calendar. And McLaren, they arrived here looking strong, sounding confident, but a real surprise. Felipe Massa on pole, an all-Ferrari front row, the first since the days of Scheckter and Villeneuve in 1979.